So we have all of our assets in place, and now we're going to use the puppet tool to move around our lizard, kind of move his head around, maybe get him looking in some different directions. Let's make sure we have our lizard selected. Okay, and we'll go up to the puppet tool, which is this one here that looks like a thumbtack, and we'll select the puppet position pin tool. Okay, so what the puppet tool allows us to do is deform a graphic based on a pin's position or the relationship between multiple pins. I'm going to put 4 pins into my lizard. So 2 pins are going to pin his foot and his body to the ground, and 2 other pins will be, well, one will be on his neck and one will be kind of more towards his nose, so I can move the direction of his head around. So let me add those. One on his hand there. I'm going to click there, and you can see when I did that there is a mesh that has become visible around that shape there. You can see that it's kind of broken into these kinds of facets. I'm going to add another pin down where his body is here, and one on his neck and one up near his nose. Alright, across the top here I've got a few things. We can turn the mesh on and off. Sometimes it's good to see that. The expansion of the mesh, we can bring that down a little bit, I think, and bring it closer to our lizard character. The density, so how many kind of facets in our grid. The more you have, the longer it takes to render. So I'm going to just go with 3. I think that'll be fine. And if we have a look at our properties under Effects, under Lizard, we'll see that under Effects there is now some puppet properties. And the ones that we want to kind of pay most attention to are the mesh, under mesh, and they are the deform properties here. And so we can see the 4 pins that I've put in. I'll just bring that down a bit so we can try and see both. So we've got pin 4 up the top there, pin 3, pin 2, pin 1. So you can see it will get definitely pretty crowded down here. Pin 4 is the top one here. If I have the pin tool or the puppet tool selected and the pin is filled in yellow, it means it's selected, I can grab that and I can move it around, and you can see it will kind of stretch the graphic and deform it depending on where I place that pin. You can get kind of nice elastic kind of movements that do look, if you spend a bit of time with it, do look pretty natural. And of course you can keyframe that. So I'm going to create a few keyframes, and it's going to be at about, I don't know, maybe 2. I'm going to make some short, sharp movements, maybe at about this point here, at about 2. I'm going to, I've accidentally already added some keyframes there, we'll just ignore those. At 2 I'm going to add a keyframe, and then just move a few frames ahead and drop down that pin there and see what that looks like. It kind of looks quite like the short, sharp movements. Maybe it's kind of his character. He's just sort of thinking about things, thinking about the sound of that, those crickets and the fly. So around about the start of the fly noise coming in, which is around about here, I'm going to get him to look down quite quickly. Got a few extra keyframes. Don't really want these ones. Get him to look down as the fly comes in. Excellent. Very good. So we need a fly now. I'm going to add a shape layer in, and I'm going to just do that on the lips and make a tiny little, oops, now I had the blizzard layer selected. I don't want to do that because I want to make a shape layer. I'm going to get right in close to that, and this is going to be my fly. Make it right in the center of the canvas, and I'll bring that scale right down so it's a tiny little fly. Turn off my notifications, and now I'm going to animate that shape, which is, I'll return and call that fly, and animate the position of my fly. Oops, so from down this corner up to, you can see the motion path being created there. It's just above my lizard's head. We'll make it kind of go in a curve like that. See how that looks. No, I think that's going way too slow for my liking. Super good. So at this point, around about here, I want our lizard to look up again. So I'm going to go back into these mesh points, add a couple more keyframes, and get him to follow the kind of line of sight of our fly. Awesome. And so we've keyframed all those properties, and that looks quite good. I like that kind of jerky movement, gives him a little bit of character. There is another way of animating the puppet tool, and that's kind of doing it live with the puppet tool selected. If I deselect all of those pins and just select just the one that I want, pull that around, I can hold down the Option key, and if I've got my timeline indicator at the position that I want to start, I can actually record some movement. So holding down the Command key and selecting the pin that I want. As soon as I start moving, it's going to kind of start recording, and it'll look kind of weird. But let me show you. See what that looks like. So you can see all of those position keyframes that have been dropped down in the timeline based on where I was moving my mouse. And just to remind you, I was holding down the Command key, and that was kind of initiating this record. So let's see how that looks. So that's giving him a little bit more. Maybe I moved the mouse around a little bit too much. Oh, and I've stretched him way too much. But you'll definitely get the idea. I think I need to be much more subtle with it. Oh yeah, I'll give it another go. So we'll undo that, and right back at the start there, I think it's at about 5 that the fly comes in. I'm going to hold the Command down and start moving that around. So I'll try and be as subtle as I possibly can. And then around about 5, he'll look down, and then he follows the fly back up. Just get that to render. Now I can go ahead and obviously alter these keyframes. So if I feel like this keyframe could have happened, could have happened a lot earlier, I can go back to that one and adjust just that single keyframe. And I could add more keyframes in too if I wanted to. So I hope you can see that the puppet tool is incredibly useful, but very fun tool as well, for adding kind of some movement through deformation, animated deformation to your layers. And it works really well for things like this, bringing a static photograph to life.